Hey everyone, Mark from Ghost of the Country. Today's video we're going to modify our wire spinner that we made previously. Works really well pulling wires out of an old fence. Problem is sometimes when I've really got it loaded up and I've got a lot of pressure on it pulling wires out of a fence, it actually builds up a lot of tension. As the wires build up on the spools here, it actually pulls this tighter and tighter upwards on the shaft of the trenching machine, and this pin here gets really hard to pull out because there's so much force pushing up against this pin, and I've got to basically tap it out, and even though you've got it nearly all the way out, it's still got a lot of force pushing up and it's jamming here all the way until the pin comes out and then the spool comes off. So what I plan on doing is modifying it and putting a couple of rings around. So I'll have a ring on the base plate part and a ring on the removable part, and then I'll use these latches, which are basically the same as I use on my ute tray. They pretty much lock the trays up. So you can swing a piece of steel onto them, and then they lock, and then they can't open. They lock a wedge system. So my plan is I'm going to have one of these mounted each side here, and as I drop this top section on, it'll go over there, and then we can lock it. And then when this gets loaded up and it's pulling hard up against here, all I need to do is tap it with the hammer. That'll open, and then we can take the spool off really easily. So we're going to quickly plasma cut a couple of circles out, weld them on, and machine up a few bits. Anyway, I'll explain it all as we go, because it's probably clear as mud at the moment, but we'll just build it and go from there. Okay, so what we need to do is make a couple of circle rings up around here, one on the top, one on the bottom. So it's got our calipers here, or whatever you want to call them. I'm not sure what the real name is. So we need to make up an outer ring and an inner ring. So that's about the size I want to make it. Maybe a bit bigger. So I've got that, take that off now. Make the other one exactly the same. So make sure we've got enough movement so it clears around here. So all we're doing is making two rings with a hole in the center, and we're going to weld one on there, one on the top plate. That's the first step. So all we're doing is scribing out a couple of circles, and then we'll do the inner one as well. I've already sort of done that one, and then I'll just put a bit of yellow paint around the edge of where we've marked it, just so I can see where I'm going to plasma cut, because I'm going to freehand cut this. I haven't actually got a jig for the plasma cutter yet to do circles, which I really need to get, but I haven't used it enough to really justify it yet. So anyway, we'll put some dots around there, and we'll get the plasma cutter and cut those out. So I've got my little SIG weld cut skill 35 up here, plasma cutter. So I've got a hook to the air compressor, and this is the torch. So basically it just blows a hole through the edge, and compressed air cuts through. Basically that's how it works. So we're going to crank this up, and we're going to freehand cut this. So it's not going to be pretty, but it'll do the job. Check it out, it's almost like it's been CNC'd. You could never tell. Ta-da! Right, so once we've got our perfectly machined out pieces, like millimetre perfect, as you can tell. Anyway, one of those is going to go on there. We will clean up the dross off of this. This stuff around the edges is actually called dross, I think, when you're plasma cutting. It's basically a fancy name for slag, pretty much. That comes off really easily. So you could whack them on just like that, but they are a bit rough, so we're going to tidy them up quickly with the angle grinder, make them a little bit rounder. And that's really all I needed. One there, one's going to get welded on the top. And then we can put our pin through here, and our latch is going to go through the top of this. So I tidied up these discs a little bit and took a bit of that surface rust off. I think we can all agree that I need to purchase a hole cutting circular jig at some point. But anyway, next job to do is drill a couple of holes through this, which is for the pins we're going to put in. Righto, so we've cut out our discs, I've tightened them up a little bit, I've drilled them out with a step drill. So basically the plan is, if I can find my parts, I've only got one of these and it's an old one, I've got to buy some more tomorrow. I'll weld a shaft from here up to there and weld it onto that. And so this will come up through here, and then these locking pins will come in like that. So I'll have a shaft through to there, and then when I want to take this off, even if it builds up a lot of pressure this way, all I've got to do is give this a little tap with a hammer. That'll release, and then this plate can come straight off. So I machined up the bottom of this rod here, which fits into here. I'm just using it as a bit of a locator at the moment, so that fits in there nice and flush. Just got to make sure we've got enough clearance around this hole here, which we do. Same on this side here. So it's just a bit of an indicator at this stage. We've got plenty of clearance around that hole, so we can now weld that plate on nice and solid. Okay, so this is a general idea. I've machined up a piece at the bottom here, which will drop into the bottom plate. I've only just pretty much tacked this on at the moment. Quickly machined out a hole in the end to suit this, and I put a bit of a bevel on it. That jams in there like that. So what we can do now is lower that into where it has to go roughly. And then we can have this, so I want it so it pretty well locks tight. So when there's a heap of pressure comes back on here, this will jam up hard. And then when I want to release it, I just got to tap that. This actually acts as a wedge system. The more this comes apart, it lifts up, so it should release the pressure really easily. Will make sense once I put it on there. So at the moment, I can sit that like that. I'm going to weld this in a minute, and now I've got a gap here. I'll adjust this in a sec, but I can move this up and down to get it exactly where I want it, and I'll just put a bead of weld around the bottom of that. Alright, so this is where I want this one to be welded. I've got a little recess in there. I'll weld underneath as well. And then up here, I've got a nice big piece I can weld around there, and I've got this set exactly where I want it. So the more load this has this way, I've got plenty of room to pull the wedge pin out, so that should be good. I'll just weld that in now and do the same on the other side. Okay, that's all I need to do now. I've got all our heights exactly where I want it. Just need to fill this up with weld. So I've got a nice big hole there I can fill up all the way around, and then we'll just grind this nice and smooth. Do that with both pins, and then we can start assembling it. I've welded all this on now. That's all done. It all locks in pretty straight. These are all centered nicely. What I was thinking before I painted everything, when it's up on its edge, when you take this half off, if the spool of wire fell off and there's quite a bit of weight in it with a full roll, could actually hit this pen and bend it a bit. So decided to just cut a bit of chromium bar, and I'm just going to weld that in there, like a little gusset like that, and that'll just strengthen that pin even more. Probably an overkill, but got a bit of scrap lying around, so may as well use it. Okay, so it all goes together quite well. Pins there, reinforcings there, and these clips are nice and firm as well. So I welded the back of these pins in as well. They're actually machined into that disc, and then we've just welded the back so they pretty much can't go anywhere. So we'll throw it on the Kanga, give it a bit of a try out, as in without a load, but then we'll get it painted up, and that's pretty much it. We'll have one pin in there holding the main base on. Won't need the second pin in here, which is getting tight. So in theory now we just take those out. It may be a bit tight, I'll be able to hit that with something if they're super tight. But because they're a wedge thing, once they're loose, they'll stay loose, so that's good. So that'll come off like that. I think the secret to this will be keep them upright when we're trying to load, so these don't fall down with gravity. So I'll keep them that way. I've got some blue, I'll paint all this in a minute. So I've got the blue paint there, which lines up with that. So it might be a bit fiddly to put back on, but where does it go? That way. So it goes like that. So that'll lock in there. Alright, we'll get a coat of paint on it and give it a test out next time we're fencing. Okay, here we are. We're just going to try out this wire spinner. So take this pin out. Right, so we get this half here, put that on there. What do you want to be on camera, do you? Just in time to be on camera. Right, we just hook a couple of barbs on. As long as we hook that on there somewhere like that. And a second one through. See if she'll pull too. Tie that on there. Right, we'll see how we go. It's actually a fair way, this one. Oh, look out, steer, you get foot chopped off. Can't go too much, the steers are walking on it. Get off it. There we go. Oh. They're not real bright. Turn him around a bit like that to get it more even. Whoop, forgot the tyre dropper off. So that's starting to get pretty full, but I don't know whether to push it and see how much we can get on this thing. There we go. Righto, that's a fair old roll. So once the ends are going through, it pretty much ties itself on. So what we've done, if I can find a hammer. So the problem was last time I had a pin through here, and when this builds up pressure with the wire on there, it obviously pulls hard on these arms here, and it's really hard to get that pin up, so I had to knock it out. So the idea of these wedge type systems, as soon as it's loosened a little bit, it should come off. Get the camera out of the road because there's a bit of pressure on it still. So we'll just give these a bit of a tap. It's got to go that way. So you can see that's loosened there. This one goes this way. You can see how it sprung out a bit, so that's pretty much it. And in theory, just pull this off and that should drop out. Just like that. All we've got to do is disconnect where we tied it on. And that is pretty much it. So nice neat little coil of wire. And it didn't take long at all. It would have been quicker if the steers had got out of the road. Get off, you rubbing mongrels. You break my mirrors, I won't be happy. Go on. Oh yeah, baby. Nice. Don't know if we'll get a full thing on this or not. Nah, I think I'm going to stop there. It's a fair old roll. This thing's awesome. Righto, just snip these quickly. Just find a bit of a spot where we can tie this off to. Like that. Like that. And that should just fall off. Oh, yes. Guys, thanks for watching. That's pretty much it for the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed that. And you know the drill. Hit the like and subscribe if you could. That'll help us out. And I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.